In today's video, we're going to do something a little different. We're jumping into the tiered ranking system type of videos, and we're ranking all of the NHL starting goaltenders. We'll jump into the tiered system coming up next. So welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're going to do something a little bit different, something that seems to be becoming more and more popular on this platform in a variety of topics, in a variety of things that can be ranked. Obviously, the tiered ranking system is pretty popular, so I thought I'd try it out and rank all the starting NHL goaltenders in some different ranking systems. So we're going to go through them all. Here's how the ranking system is going to work that I have set up for these goalies. We have elite goaltenders, we have great goaltenders, we have good goaltenders, then we have average and bad. So most of this is going to be based on last year's performance. So some of these guys have had pretty good careers, but are different stages of their career and all that. So it kind of factored in their whole body of work, but more emphasis on their recent play. So let's dive in and I'll show you how I'm ranking these goalies. And of course, I want to know your thoughts and comments down below. So let me know what you think and how you'd rank these goaltenders as well. And I'll leave a link to my tiered ranking system down in the description if you want to check it out and fill out your own. Alright, so jumping in here for the elite group, there's going to be 3 goaltenders in this category. In my opinion, there's 3 guys in the NHL who could be franchise-type goalies and really be elite and be consistently in the conversation for the Vezina Trophy and be big-time winning goalies in around the league here. So let's jump in. First up, we've got Andrei Vasilevskiy of the Tampa Bay Lightning, the current Vezina Trophy winner. As much as Tampa Bay is a stacked team and has a great team in front of them, there's been many nights when they're not on their game where they really need Vasilevskiy in order to get the W, and he really comes through. He's really an elite goaltender. Reading a recent article in The Athletic where they discussed this similar type of topic as well. Many of the GMs were anonymously polled around the league, and he was by far the unanimous winner, or the current leader, at least for the top goaltender. Consensus across the league amongst executives at least is that Vasilevskiy is the top goaltender as of today. Now, also in this category, I have put Carey Price of the Montreal Canadiens. He's always calm, cool, collected back there in the net for Montreal. He's certainly bounced back. He did have a bit of a rough patch in his game, but based on how he played last year, I think he's back to the old Carey Price. And as I've always said, and quite often at least, the Habs go as Price goes. He's their MVP. He's their top goaltender. You know, former Hart Trophy winner, former Vezina Trophy winner. He had a couple of years ago where he took home all the hardware, and I think he can get back to that. So, in my opinion, Price is still an elite goaltender. The third member of the elite club in my tiered ranking system here is Sergei Bobrovsky, now of the Florida Panthers. He just signed a mega contract for $10 million per year for 7 years. Even though he hasn't had a ton of playoff success, he did have some last year with Columbus, multiple Vezina trophies, super great stats, always a regular season goalie with terrific numbers. You can bank on him at that time of year. Like I said, he's certainly working on his playoff reputation as well, and I think he's really going to help Florida be a much more competitive team and hopefully get them into the playoffs on a more consistent basis and kind of help rebuild what they have going on. And they have a lot of young talent, and he certainly was a missing ingredient. So, in my opinion, these are the 3 goalies currently in the NHL who I would rank as elite. Now, jumping into the next category of great goaltenders, we're going to start with John Gibson of the Anaheim Ducks. I think he's probably the 4th best goalie in the league right now, at least in my opinion. Let me know what you think down in the comments. But John Gibson always gives the Ducks a chance every night. He's a beast back there. Really, he's their best player, their MVP. And I know even though they had a tough year last year, I'm not sure things are going to be a whole lot better this year, but they do have a lot of young talent, so we'll see if they can get things turned around. But John Gibson is the type of guy who's usually underrated and a little bit underappreciated in my opinion, but he's a solid goalie and doesn't quite get enough recognition that he deserves, in my opinion. Also in this group, we have Ben Bishop of the Dallas Stars, a multiple-time nominee for the Vezina Trophy. Always puts up great stats, always keeps his team in it, always obviously coming off a really solid year with the Stars, and the Stars are expected to take things a step further even more this year. So Ben Bishop certainly is still a great goaltender. Also in this category, we've got Marc-Andre Fleury of the Vegas Golden Knights. Of course, multiple Stanley Cup winner. Took Vegas on a deep run to the finals in their first year of existence. Probably the face of that franchise right now. Of course, they've added some more talent since they got started with Fleury, but he was the original face of the franchise, their first big-time player, and certainly played like it in their first year. And is a big reason why they're such a competitive team year in, year out, heading into their 3rd year of existence now. So Fleury, in my opinion, still a great goaltender. Certainly bounced back after a little bit of inconsistent play in Pittsburgh near the end of his time with that franchise. We're also adding Pekka Rinne to the great goaltender list as well. Former Vezina Trophy winner, certainly had a really solid career up until recently, though. Hadn't won a whole lot when it comes to individual awards or a Stanley Cup. He's still missing that cup, but the Predators certainly went on a deep run a couple of years ago and are trying to recreate that ever since. We'll see what they can do this year, but Pekka Rinne's certainly been a great, solid goaltender and has kept Nashville in many games throughout his time there. Next up, we're adding Braden Holtby of the Washington Capitals, now a Stanley Cup winning goaltender from 2 years ago. Of course, Holtby was another guy like Bobrovsky who had a lot of regular season success and for the most part a lot of playoff success too. He didn't have a lot of W's like he would have liked, but his stats were always really good in the playoffs. Certainly was not the reason why the Capitals did not break through until 2 years ago, and when they did, he was a big reason why they did. He had a poor regular season and followed it up with an awesome playoff run to win the Stanley Cup. So Braden Holtby, still a great goaltender, a pending UFA. He's going to be looking for a mega contract like we've seen with Bobrovsky this past offseason. So we'll see how the Capitals make out with that. We're also adding in there Tuukka Rask of the Boston Bruins as a great goalie. Had a deep playoff run this past year with Boston. I know he did have a little bit of a reputation before that of not being great in the playoffs, but they've certainly, I think, erased that this past year with his playoff performance. He's been a solid goalie for the Bruins for a long, long time, and at some point here, I think he will help them capture the ultimate prize since, of course, he's been the starter. They haven't been able to win the Stanley Cup. Of course, their last cup back in 2011 was with Tim Thomas, and Rask has been the starting goaltender for quite some time now and really has some solid years under his belt. We're also adding in the newest Stanley Cup winner to this category, Jordan Binnington. I think he's going to have a hard time duplicating what he did last year in the second half of the season and the playoffs to get them to the Cup, but there were certainly some nights when he wasn't on, and that's bound to happen. Actually, that's pretty normal, but from the second half during the regular season, there was really not too many nights where he wasn't on his game. He was like almost invincible, but he had a great year, and for now he'll end up in that category. If he slips at all and falls back, maybe he'll change categories if we were to redo this next year, but for right now we're going to keep Binnington in the great category. We're also adding in Freddie Anderson of the Maple Leafs, certainly a backbone of that team, night in and night out. Hopefully he can play an appropriate number of games this year. Had trouble having a solid backup, really ever since McElhinney's been gone. They need to be able to play him less so he's better rested for the playoffs. But Freddie Anderson, like I said, keeps them in the Leafs in that game many nights. They certainly have lots of firepower up front, so he's usually got pretty good run support. So even when he's off a little bit and might allow a few extra goals that he might not have wanted to or that he normally would stop, they can usually still get the W. But Freddie Anderson's huge and is certainly a great goalie. And lastly, in this category, we're adding Robin Lehner. Now the Chicago Blackhawks coming off a phenomenal year, and even though it was really the only year on his record of being that solid, like I said, I put more emphasis on the more recent play as well as his whole body of work. And I think for right now, he's going to be a great goalie. We'll see if he can remain there after everything he's been through. If he can pull off another great year in Chicago, and then we'll see more consistency, and hopefully he can remain that way for the remainder of his career. So now let's jump down to the good category. There's still lots of good and great goalies around the league, but of course we're going to emphasize a lot here on their recent play. I put Connor Hellebuyck as the first goalie in the good category. He could have been great, and he was 2 years ago, but this past year he was just good and just okay in my opinion. And the Jets are going to have a tougher time this year with all the changes to that team. The defense core is a lot weaker, and he needs to up his game, be a great goalie again for them to have anywhere close to the level of success they've had in the past couple years. So we need Connor Hellebuyck to bounce back, but I think the talent's there, the focus is there, just a matter of getting things back to where they were. I mean, it's normal for players' performances to go up and down a little bit. I'm also putting Matt Murray in this category, and it might seem odd. People might disagree with this one. A two-time Stanley Cup winner in his first 2 years of existence in the NHL. But you know what? Matt Murray's been a little bit inconsistent the past couple of years. He's been having trouble with his staying healthy as well. And to me, I have concerns over the long-term viability of him to be a solid, great goaltender or elite goaltender in Pittsburgh. So for me right now, he's just good. I've also put David Rittich of the Flames in this group. David Rittich last year really broke out, and I think he's going to break out further and be more of a great goaltender this year. So I think next year, I think he'll probably move up if things go the way I feel they will. But Rittich earned a nickname, Big Save Dave, and certainly will have more of an opportunity to make those big saves this year with Mike Smith not being in the picture anymore. We've also added in Devin Dubnyk of the Minnesota Wild. Of course, Dubnyk's had some solid years with the Wild after bouncing around early in his career. And obviously, the first couple of years he struggled. But then once he got to Minnesota, things really took off, and he's been great ever since. And sometimes it's the team in front front of him. But overall, in my opinion, the last couple of years, he's just been good. We're going to add in King Henrik Lundqvist into this mix as well. He's certainly at the latter stages of his career. And if you look at the whole body of work, he's had a tremendous career. And if I was going on by career stats, I'd probably put him as a great goaltender. But based on his recent play, I'd say he's just been good. And even though the team in front of him has been weaker, that's probably plays a role. But I do think his game is slipping a little bit. And we'll see how well he can play with a stronger team in front of him this year. We're also putting in youngster Carter Hart of the Philadelphia Flyers, who certainly had a little bit of an up and down year last year. He started really solid, looked like he was going to be a contender for the Calder Trophy. And then, not that really things fell off, but he certainly had a little bit more of a normalcy kind of kick in there. So we'll see if that effect goes on Binnington later this year after a solid half season from him. But Carter Hart, in my opinion, is going to be an elite goaltender someday. I think he can reach that status. It's just going to take him some more experience to reach that level. But for right now, I think he's a good goalie. And then last but not least in this category, we've got Antti Ranta of the Arizona Coyotes. My only issue with him is his health. I mean, when he's able to play, his stats have been incredible. Like, he's putting up solid numbers for the Coyotes. He did it with the Rangers before that as a backup. But really, he can't stay healthy and play a significant amount of time. Otherwise, he probably would have been in the great category, because I think when he's healthy, he can be great. But for right now, for me, he's just good because you can't bank on him to play enough games. Jumping down to the tier called average, we have some more goalies. Some of these guys have had pretty solid careers, but lately they've only been average to me. And we're going to start with Jonathan Quick of the LA Kings. He's been average at best the last couple of years, but he's also had a lot of injury problems too. But he's had a great career, multiple Stanley Cups, lots of success, but now he's just average in my opinion. You get Philip Grubauer, the Colorado Avalanche, in there as well. I think he'll likely move up a step if things go the way I see them this year as well. At least one or two categories in this group for next year. Grubauer was a big reason why the Avalanche had so much success to get into the playoffs last year, and then once they got there to make a little bit of noise. So I see things going well for him there. You had Jacob Markstrom in Vancouver. Markstrom, I think, was average, and you know what? There was some points last year where he could have been even ranked a little higher, but to me, I think this year he's just going to be good. The overall body of work combined with last year, to me, he's just an average goalie, kind of a placeholder right now until Thatcher Demko is ready to take that spot. You got Peter Mrazek in Carolina. Mrazek had a pretty good year last year, but really the last couple of years before that, Detroit kind of bounced around, wasn't really, all that solid, but last year he made up for it, but I'm not sure that he was really much better than average. Certainly bouncing back and forth between him and McElhinney, the Carolina Hurricanes did quite well, but we'll see how much he can really step up his game this year. You get Semyon Varlamov as well, who's now with the Islanders, formerly of the Avalanche, and really, in my opinion, he's only been average the last couple of years, battled some health issues, so we'll see what he can do with the Islanders to replace Robin Lehner. He needs to be better than average, though, if they're going to have a lot of success. You get Corey Crawford, who at times has been a good or a great goalie, but right now, again, like some of these other guys, had a lot of trouble staying healthy. So for me, when he's played, he's only been average because he's missed so much time. You can't expect anything more than that from him. But I really like Crawford. I've been a huge fan of his, but unfortunately, he's only been average because of the amount of time he's missed. You also got Martin Jones in this category with the Sharks, who at one point was stronger, but the last couple of years been inconsistent and has only been an average goalie. And I think that's the downfall for the Sharks not winning a Stanley Cup, is their goaltending just not solid enough. You also got Carter Hutton in here from the Buffalo Sabres. Buffalo Sabres has had a long time since they've had a real solid goalie. So, and Carter Hutton's not the answer. Linus Ullmark's not the answer, but they're kind of trying to get by here. I do have some concerns they're going to have a ton of success until they can get a more solid goalie. He was a really, really good backup, but he's just not a great starter. He's only average in my opinion. You've also got Jimmy Howard in here of the Detroit Red Wings, who, early in his career was stronger as well. Now he's only average. Detroit's going through a rebuild. The team in front of him's not great, so obviously that plays a role, but he's really just only average here in the last few years. And I also added in Mike Smith as well, who certainly had some solid years in Arizona, but last year in Calgary wasn't fantastic, and I think he's kind of at the stage of his career where he's just okay, he's just average. And jumping into the final category here, we've added Mikko Koskinen. Koskinen's start to his time with the Oilers was not good at all. Certainly had some bad starts, and it's just not the goalie I think that they really needed, and I'm so really surprised on the contract that he was given. We'll see if things get any better or not. We've also got Craig Anderson here of the Ottawa Senators. He's certainly on the last leg of his career. The team in front of him has been very poor defensively, so I will cut him some slack, but Craig Anderson's been good year, bad year, good year, bad year, good year, bad year for so many years that you don't know which Anderson you're getting from year to year. Like I said, and I will cut him some slack on the team in front of him. The last 2 years, they've gone through a gutted team with a rebuild, and there's certainly a lot of young defenders in front of him this year as well, but we'll see. But his stats certainly don't show him being anything better than where I have him on this list. And we're also going to throw in Corey Schneider here as well. Finally in this list, I think he's at the same kind of stage of his career. He's been unable to stay healthy, had a lot of problems with his hips, and when he has played, like, he went so long without a win. And I can't remember exactly how long it was last year into the year before, but it was such a long stretch, and I'm just not sure he can bounce back and be any better than that. I'm not even sure he's average anymore, so that's where I have Corey Schneider. So that is my tiered ranking system for all 31 NHL goaltenders. Like I said, there'll be links down in the description so you can complete this exercise yourself. Hopefully have some fun with it, compare yours to mine, and let me know in the comments section how yours would be different and what you think of my rankings here. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.